Hi, Susan Young, Mindful Coaching, and today we're exploring practicing sustainable self-care, habit number 7 in cultivating joy in difficult times. And I landed with someone who I really like. She's written a book called Sit Down and Rise Up, and her name's Shelley Tiklech. I can send you the link if you're looking. And she talks about what does it mean to have genuine self-care? What is the actual definition of what self-care is? So she describes it as committing to take an active role in safeguarding our mental, physical, and spiritual wellness, doing it in a way that's proactive and especially in times of challenges. So I loved that definition. I thought it was really good. How do we continue, sometimes moment to moment, daily, and then looking at some areas like how do we look at, she talked about rhythms of 4 areas: daily, weekly, seasonally, and annually. So when we set up certain routines and habits for ourselves, then we can create a more focused sense of mindfulness. So that definition, just kind of feel how that lands with you. Maybe you want to add something. Maybe it feels like, yeah, that's good. And when we do that high level of self-care in a multitude of ways, then it allows us to stay compassionate with ourselves, to catch it when we go into self-criticism, and with others as well. So it's the commitment to staying accountable, to following through on that. And for most of us, that's hard, especially when things get challenging. Or for some of us, I know for me, I have to really watch that when I see large injustices. So I also want to know that self-care is part of being able to do social justice at times from a place of calmness and clarity. I had a friend years ago who did a PhD in what happens to social justice activists when they go and do their own personal work and then come back to the social justice. And that's what they found. That's what she found in her research, was that we can still do what we need to do, but we do it from a place of honor, place of calmness, a place of compassion, rather than self-righteous aggression, which I spent a lot of my time in my social justice work being self-righteous and aggressive and believing I was right all the time. So I've really appreciated the shift in mindfulness. And today is the National Day of Reconciliation. And they interviewed Murray Sinclair, who you probably know, chaired and kind of wrote the report on Indigenous peoples. And we're making progress, but sometimes it's an inch at a time, and we need to be making more. And I love that this day has been created in Canada, because we are making progress. So the part of me that wants to stay mindful, wants to stay creative and aligned and work really skillfully as an ally, pays attention to that so that I don't go off the wall with rage at what's still happening, but I pay attention. So many of us find self-care selfish. And why is that? There's kind of some 6 key things that I've explored and prepared for you today. And one of them are childhood beliefs. Sometimes we're raised in families or in schooling, or if we went to church as children, or if we lived in whatever was going on in our childhood, where it's a selfish, like my mother used to say, sometimes she would slap me on the side and that's so selfish of you to do that. And I would be confused as a young child. Like, I don't understand why that's selfish. That's what we do as young children. We take care of ourselves, and our parents' job, our family's job, is to support us and help us to be more attentive to both self-care and how we care for others. So that leads us to number 2, which is a distorted idea of caring for others first. And sometimes that's based on what some of our amazing leaders in the world, Gandhi, Mandela, Martin Luther King, Tara Brach talks about self-care as an important thing. She's one of our great mindfulness leaders, Sharon Salzberg. But they weren't, working with social justice and self-care. And we need to care for self first, and then care for others, coming out of a full well. I don't know about you, but I was taught that it's rude to say no. It's just rude. So learning how to say no, I had to say no to 2 different requests this morning because it just wasn't possible for me this week. As you know, I moved and I'm still sorting. I've still got boxes and my clothes aren't all finished. In the kitchen, something in the kitchen broke. I had to get a plumber this morning. I've just got too much on my plate right now. So I was really glad this self-care was number 7 and was coming up. We're not always clear, although I'm sure you're making progress like me, self-care versus self-centeredness. How do we make sure that we discern and distinguish between that? Because self-care is really important, but when does it come into, self-centeredness, and how do we discern which is which? And then the last one I wanted to talk about was this whole wellness industry, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry to take care of yourself. And I've heard complaints, and I know I've experienced it myself, that whole belly gazing, and we're just busy with ourselves doing self-care. And how do we find the right size balance? And each of us has to find our own to still give, to still connect with others and offer what is true for us to others. So, yeah, we want to expand our definition of what authentic self-care means and develop the discipline of a healthy lifestyle. And I think most of us here have been working on this for a long time. This isn't new. So it's a way to remind ourselves and recommit. And before we end today, I'm going to ask you to make one commitment, if it feels right for you, here comes Allison, one commitment for you around upcoming self-care that's new for you. It could be small, it could be big. Hi, Allison, welcome. We're just going through authentic self-care, and I'll send you a brief email at the end to kind of let you know the research that I did behind authentic self-care, which we define as, at this point, I'm putting it out, and if it doesn't feel full enough, feel free to add to it. Taking an active, engaged role in safeguarding our mental, physical, and spiritual wellness proactively, and especially in times of duress. Doing what's good for us so we can increase our stamina, improve our self-esteem, and build resilience. And through doing this, this allows us to be compassionate and continue to do social justice work that calls us when it's the right thing. So it's that combination, discernment. And then I went through some of the old beliefs that some of us might carry. And now I'm going to ask you, before we leave today, to make one commitment of something new, and it can be small. So before I finish this part, I'm going to talk about what does a sustainable self-care regimen of discipline, moderate discipline, look like for you? And how do we keep going, get up and try again, even when we fail, even when we don't continue? So there's a number of steps that research shows us have a higher chance to work. And again, if you're already doing these, you just say, good, I'm here for the practice. It needs to be gentle enough to work for you. 2, small steps, little things. 3, making a promise to self based on gentle enough and small steps, something that enhances your life energy. So that can be something like dancing, something that's off the charts of what we call self-care. So we need to think outside the box. And then that I talked about the 4 rhythms: daily, weekly, seasonally, and annually. So you may want to say something like, on the 1st of every month, I'll do this, or first thing in the morning, I'll do this, or every week I'll do this, or on them, perhaps you're someone who recognizes the, the solstice and equinoxes. So that's something that I know that I pay attention to. Hello, kitty cat. And creating a community of care like we've done here, where you can follow through and ask for help and guidance and support, and then finding the balance. Because if you work, if you've taken care of yourself, your social obligations, perhaps cleaning up around you, you might have people coming in to help you in different times, you have other obligations. So how do we find that in a way that helps us continue to feel like we're making a difference in our self-care? Okay. So thanks for listening. I'm going to stop the recording.